Welcome to Top Stories Hub. Today we've got a new story, a mystery you'll want to unravel. I was dicing onions when my phone buzzed. At first, everything seemed perfectly normal. The rich smell of roasted garlic swirled around the kitchen. Ava's giggles floated in from the living room, where she was glued to a wacky cartoon, and the steady tap of my knife on the wooden board kept me centered. Then I glanced at the screen, Dr. Ryan Carter. My hand tightened around the phone. It had been more than a year since we last talked, not since Emily pushed for a new doctor after I raised concerns about his overly warm attitude toward her. There was always something unsettling about him, too polished, too self-assured. I wiped my hands on a kitchen rag and answered the call. "Ryan," I said guardedly, "what's this about?" His voice was eerily composed, almost unnervingly so. "Ethan," he said slowly, like we were longtime pals, "I figured it's time we had a real talk, just man to man." A shiver crept up my back. I slipped out of the kitchen, keeping my voice low. "What are you getting at?" Ryan let out a smug, calculated chuckle. "Emily and we were involved." My world froze. The words hit me like a foreign phrase, not sinking in right away. "Come again." My voice was rough, strained. "You heard me right," Ryan said, his tone almost playful. "Your wife, Emily Harper, we had something unique. Or so I thought, until she moved on to another doctor." My jaw locked, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. "You're making this up." "Am I, now?" Ryan sighed theatrically. "She's with Dr. Nathan Brooks now. Maybe you've heard of him, head of cardiology at Pine Grove Medical Center. Don't just take my word for it, though. Check it out yourself. Storage room 506. It's her favorite spot." Something inside me shattered. Storage room 506, I knew it well. When Emily first started at Pine Grove, she mentioned it was where they stored extra supplies. She even made a playful remark once about it being a prime spot for a scandal. I'd chuckled back then, thinking she was just joking. Now I felt like an idiot. My grip on the phone was so tight my knuckles paled. "Why are you telling me this?" Ryan let out a slow breath. "I genuinely believed she was special. I cared about her, but it turns out Emily's just another woman who flits from one guy to the next, using them to get what she wants." His tone grew sharp. "I thought you ought to know before she shames you even further." I didn't want to buy it. I couldn't. But deep in my gut, a nagging feeling told me he wasn't lying. Emily had been pulling away lately, longer hours at work, flimsy excuses, cryptic texts she brushed off as job stress. I'd chalked it up to the usual ups and downs of marriage, something we'd worked through. Now, doubt gnawed at me. Ryan's voice sliced through my spiraling thoughts. "Head to the hospital, Ethan. See it with your own eyes." Then the line went dead. For a moment, I stood there, my mind spinning. The knife lay on the counter, a half-chopped onion beside it, as if the world hadn't just shifted. But it had. Emily was betraying me. No, she'd already betrayed me, over and over, and I'd been too naive, too trusting, too foolish to notice. I glanced toward the living room, where Ava sat cross-legged on the rug, nibbling popcorn. She was the spitting image of Emily, same fiery red hair, same charming dimples, but her eyes, wide and insightful, were mine. My stomach churned. I couldn't break down, not in front of her. Taking a deep breath, I steadied my voice. "Ava, sweetheart, I've got to run out for a bit." She looked up, curiosity in her eyes. "Where to, Dad?" I faltered. The truth wasn't something I could share, not yet. "Just a quick errand. I'll be back soon." She flashed a thumbs up, already turning back to her show. I scooped up my keys, phone, and wallet, but before heading out, I made one call. Jake. Jake Thompson had been my neighbor for 5 years, a dependable guy, ex-military like me. He worked security at Pine Grove Medical Center, managing all the surveillance cameras. If anyone could get me the evidence I needed, it was him. He answered on the second ring. "Ethan," Jake said. "I need a favor," I said, my voice taut. "Can you check storage room 506 at the hospital?" A brief silence, then his tone dropped. "What's going on, man?" "Emily's in there with someone," I said, forcing down the knot in my throat. "I need to know if it's real." Jake let out a sharp breath. "Give me 10 minutes. The call ended, and I leaned against the kitchen counter, clutching the edge until my fingers ached. 10 minutes. 10 minutes to discover if my whole marriage was a sham. Every second dragged on like forever. I paced the kitchen, my thoughts racing through every moment with Emily over the past year, the late-night showers, her sudden fixation on her looks, the way she flinched when I leaned in for a kiss. Had she ever really loved me, or was I just a convenient placeholder? My phone vibrated. "Jake. Check your texts." I braced myself and opened the message. There it was, the proof. A photo of Emily pressed against a tall man in a lab coat, his fingers woven through her hair, his lips grazing her neck. Dr. Nathan Brooks. My wife. Nausea hit me hard. Another text from Jake popped up, "There's a video too. You sure you want it?" I stared at the screen, my breath short and jagged. I should say no, walk away, cling to whatever sanity I had left. But I had to know. "Send it," I typed. The file loaded slowly, then played. Emily's voice, soft and teasing, "Nathan, you shouldn't. My shift's not done." A low chuckle, "I don't care." The sound of lips meeting, clothes rustling, her faint moan. I dropped the phone. The room spun, my ears buzzed, my chest felt like it was collapsing. This wasn't a slip-up. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Emily was gone, the woman I married, the mother of my daughter, the partner I'd built a life with. She'd chosen this, not once, not twice, but repeatedly. A cold, steely resolve washed over me. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to plead. I was going to end this. Whatever scheme Emily thought she was running, it was finished. I picked up my phone, steadied my breathing, and sent one final text, "Thanks, Jake. I owe you big." Then I stepped out the door, ready to confront the woman who'd torn my world apart. I sat in my car, eyes glued to my phone. The images were still there, each one more crushing than the last, Emily, my wife, wrapped around Dr. Nathan Brooks in the shadowy storage room. The video, which I couldn't bear to watch beyond the first few seconds, lingered in my messages, poised to deliver the killing blow. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. I should have been stunned, reeling. I should have felt something other than this empty, suffocating void in my chest. But I'd seen this before, too many times in combat zones, in debrief rooms, in moments where a man's life unraveled before him. This was betrayal, and betrayal left no space for mercy. I let out a slow breath, willing my pulse to calm. Then I did what any man with a scrap of pride would do. I dialed my wife. The phone rang twice before she picked up. "Hey, honey," she said, her voice breezy, nonchalant, the same tone she used when dodging questions about late shifts or sudden meetings. "What's up?" I clenched my teeth. "Honey." She still had the nerve to call me that, probably smoothing her hair after being with him. "Where are you at?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. A brief pause, then, "At work." "Everything okay?" I swallowed the bitterness rising in my throat. "Where exactly at work?" A slight hesitation. "Oh, just wrapping up some paperwork in my office." "What's wrong?" "Liar." Storage room 506 was nothing like an office. I grabbed my phone again, pulling up the video Jake sent. I pressed play, forcing myself to listen this time, to take in every sound, every damning whisper that shredded the life I'd built with her. Emily's flirty laughter, Nathan's deep chuckle, the unmistakable sound of clothes shifting. I could see it so clearly, her hair disheveled, lipstick smeared, adjusting her blouse, thinking she could leave that room and come home to me like nothing happened. My fist tightened. No more. You're with him right now, aren't you? I asked, my voice chillingly calm. She gasped softly. A moment of silence, then, Ethan, what are you talking about? I know it all, Emily. I let the words hang, giving her a chance to come clean, to scrape together some shred of honesty. But she didn't. Instead, she sighed, like I was the one being difficult. I was going to tell you, she said, her tone almost dismissive. But I thought it'd be better to talk face to face. I almost laughed at how ridiculous that sounded. So, what, you were going to sit me down and say, hey, Ethan, I've been hooking up with multiple doctors at work, but don't worry, I'll keep it casual. She stayed silent. My grip on the phone tightened. How long, Emily? Another sigh. It doesn't matter. I nearly hurled the phone at the dashboard. It matters to me. She was quiet for a long stretch, then, with a casual shrug in her voice, she said, Ryan was a year. Nathan, a few months. A year. A whole year I'd been living a lie. I forced down the bitter taste in my mouth. So what's next? You move in with him? Or is another doctor already lined up? She laughed, a light, mocking laugh, like this was all a game. Oh, Ethan, you're so over the top, she said, almost amused. Look, we've got two paths here. We can stay married, and you accept that I don't do traditional monogamy, or we divorce. I froze. You think I'd stay married to you after this? I don't know, she said honestly. But if we divorce, I'm taking half. And Ava. My breath caught, sharp and painful. Ava. I'd braced myself for losing money, for Emily claiming her share of everything I'd worked for, but not my daughter. She stays with me, I said, my tone leaving no room for debate. Emily's soft laugh cut through. Oh, Ethan, you're a carpenter. I'm a doctor. Do you honestly think a judge will hand full custody to a guy who works with tools when the mom's got a prestigious career? That's when I realized Emily wasn't just walking away from our marriage. She was trying to obliterate me, and she didn't even feel a hint of remorse. My hands trembled now, not from grief, not even from rage, but from something deeper, something irreversible. I ended the call without another word. I knew what had to be done. As I stepped back into the house, Ava was there, her young face creased with concern, her wide hazel eyes, my eyes, scanning me for answers. Dad? I stopped dead in my tracks. She'd overheard something. I should have seen it coming. Ava was always sharp, picking up on things most kids her age wouldn't notice. There was no shielding my hurt in front of her. She crossed her arms. It's about Mom, right? I wavered. Tell me what's going on, she pressed, her tone firm. I slumped into the chair across from her, dragging a hand across my face. Your mom's been involved with someone else. Ava's jaw clenched, but she didn't seem surprised. If anything, she looked like she'd been expecting this. I figured as much, she muttered under her breath. I furrowed my brow. What's that supposed to mean? Her eyes locked onto mine, her face a mask of calm. I've suspected for a while, Dad. I just didn't want to break your heart. I stared, floored. My 11-year-old daughter had pieced it together before I had. Why didn't you say anything? I asked, my voice soft. Ava shrugged slightly. Would you have taken me seriously? I wanted to insist I would've, but deep down, I knew the truth. She let out a quiet sigh, leaning closer. So, what's the plan now? I breathed out slowly, the weight of it all pressing down. I've got to find a way to keep her from taking you away from me. Ava's lips formed a tight line. Then let's outsmart her at her own game. I blinked, caught off guard. Come again. She sat up straighter, her voice resolute. Let's vanish before she even knows what hit her. I looked at her, stunned. Ava. Dad, she cut in, her tone unwavering, she doesn't really care about us. She's all about control. If you don't push back, she's going to come out on top. I hesitated. Her idea was bold, risky, downright dangerous. But wasn't I already cornered? Ava studied my expression, then hit me with the clincher. You've always taught me to stand tough, she said softly. Now I'm asking you to do the same. That's when it hit me, Emily had already lost. My daughter wasn't hers, she was mine. I reached across the table, enveloping her small hands in mine. All right, I whispered. Ava's eyes sparkled with determination. Really? I gave a firm nod. It was time to tear it all down. I sat in the shadowy kitchen, clutching a mug of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Emily's betrayal weighed on me like a stone, but it wasn't just the sting of her cheating, it was her threat to take Ava. Not out of love or a desire to be a mom, but because it was her way of claiming victory. Over the years, I'd learned one thing about Emily, she never fought fair. Ava sat across from me, legs tucked under her on the chair, arms crossed, her gaze fixed on me. She'd been silent since our earlier talk, but I could see her mind working overtime. At last, she leaned in. We've got to get out of here. I looked up, startled. What's that? You heard me, she said, her voice steady, her eyes burning with resolve. Mom thinks she's got this in the bag, but we need to slip away before she even catches on. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Ava, this isn't some game. Just running off isn't the solution. She shook her head firmly. Running off is what she'd expect. I'm talking about leaving, and taking everything with us. I frowned, puzzled. What are you saying? Ava leaned closer, her voice dropping like she was sharing a secret. We don't just grab a couple of bags and go. We dismantle her entire world before we disappear. I blinked, taken aback. Ava. Dad, she interrupted, her face fierce, she's planning to strip you, us, of everything. She doesn't get to win. If we're going to vanish, we make sure she's left with nothing. I let out a slow breath, studying her. She was only 11, but right then, she seemed years older, like she'd already decided and was just waiting for me to get on board. I hated to admit it, but she was right. Emily had made her move. If I didn't strike back, she'd crush me and walk away smirking. I set my mug down and leaned in. Okay, I said quietly. Walk me through your plan. Ava's lips curved into a sly grin, the same grin I got when I was scheming. Step 1, the vanishing act. We've got to play this smart, she said, snatching a pen and notepad from the counter. Mom's betting on you being crushed and mopey, right? I nodded. So that's what you show her, she said, jotting something down. For the next few days, you act like you're broken. Let her think she's got the upper hand. Then, when she's not looking, bam, we're gone. I raised an eyebrow. Bam. She flashed a mischievous smile. Trust me, you'll get it. I couldn't help but laugh. For someone so young, she had the cunning of a master planner. But where would we even head to? I asked. Her face grew serious. Cedar Ridge. I froze. Cedar Ridge Reservation, the place I'd vowed never to set foot in again. My childhood home, my tribal roots. The thought of returning sent a chill through me, but it was also brilliant. Emily wouldn't think to look there. She probably didn't even recall I was part of the Cedar tribe. The reservation was remote, off the radar, no courts, no lawyers, no custody fights. Just land, people, and safety. I swallowed hard. You're serious about going there? Ava nodded firmly. I don't trust Mom, and I'm not living with her. If we head to Cedar Ridge, she'll never track us down. She was spot on. It was time to return home. Step 2, taking it all. All right, I said, my thoughts falling into place. If we're doing this, we do it thoroughly. We don't just leave, we strip away everything she cherishes. Ava's eyes glinted with excitement. Like what, exactly? I grabbed a notepad and started scribbling. First, the house. We sell off anything valuable before we go. Second, the cash. We empty the accounts. Third, her reputation. We make sure everyone sees Emily Harper for who she really is. Ava grinned wide. This is gonna be epic. Step 1, the house. Before Emily had a clue, I began clearing out the house. Anything worth something, gone. Jewelry, gadgets, even the flashy designer purses she loved showing off. I listed them online, pricing them to move quickly. When she came home from work, she hardly noticed the missing stuff, too caught up in bragging about her new fling to care. Meanwhile, I siphoned every cent I could from our shared account into a hidden one. She thought she'd walk away with half. She'd be lucky to find a single penny. Step 2, the reputation takedown. While I tackled the money side, Ava handled the second phase with finesse. She wasn't just clever, she was a downright genius. With a few swift keystrokes, she set up a mass email to blast out to Emily's co-workers at the hospital, laying bare her string of affairs. She even included the damning proof Jake had provided. By the time Emily caught wind of it, she wouldn't just be labeled a cheater, she'd be a disgraced physician, her career in tatters. The final move, the blaze. We've got to make sure she knows there's no coming back, Ava whispered one evening, perched on the floor of my workshop, her voice low but resolute. I understood exactly what she meant. Emily cherished this house, it was her crown jewel, her domain. If we left it intact, she'd cling to the delusion that she could reclaim it someday. So I made up my mind, before we left Oakwood Heights for good, I'd torch our past, literally. Ava didn't protest. She gave a quiet nod, her eyes steady. The final meal. On our last night in the house, Emily strolled in late, as usual, her smug confidence unshaken, oblivious that by dawn, her entire world would be reduced to cinders. She barely glanced my way. You look like hell, she remarked, pouring herself a glass of wine with a dismissive smirk. Maybe get some rest. For the first time in days, I smiled, a genuine, cold smile. I'll sleep soon enough, I replied. Emily let out a distracted hum, not bothering to meet my eyes as she headed upstairs. The moment she was out of sight, I turned to Ava, who sat across from me, her eyes alight with anticipation. You ready? I asked. Her grin was electric. Let's do this. And with that, we slipped into the night, leaving nothing behind but a trail of fire. I watched the flames leap against the dark sky, the roar of the blaze consuming what was left of our life in Oakwood Heights. The house, the one I'd poured my heart into building, was now a raging inferno, its walls crumbling as dense smoke poured into the night. Emily adored this place. It was her ultimate prize, a meticulously designed showcase of gleaming floors, high-end furniture, and ostentatious decor meant to dazzle the elite doctors she so desperately wanted to impress. Now it was nothing. The fire's glow flickered in my rearview mirror as I drove off, Ava quiet beside me. We didn't exchange words, but when I stole a glance at her, her expression told me she got it. We weren't just walking away, we were ensuring there was no going back. The next morning, Emily's piercing scream cut through the dawn's stillness. By the time she reached the scene, all that remained of our once immaculate home was a charred framework of scorched timber and fallen beams. Firefighters were still there, hosing down the last embers, but the house was beyond saving. She pushed through the onlookers, her face contorted in disbelief. No, she muttered, no, this can't be real. Her hands trembled, her entire world had collapsed into ruins overnight, and she was clueless about how or why. "Ma'am," a firefighter said, approaching her, "are you the owner?" Emily spun around, still dazed. Yeah, this is my house." What happened?" The firefighter adjusted his helmet, eyeing the wreckage. "Arson. Someone deliberately set it ablaze." Emily stumbled back, her mind grappling with the word. Arson. This was no accident, someone had done this intentionally. Then a voice broke through the crowd. "They're gone." Emily whirled around, spotting Mrs. Larson, our elderly neighbor, standing on the sidewalk. Her expression was unreadable, her voice icy. Emily blinked. "What?" Mrs. Larson folded her arms. "Ethan and Ava. They cleared out, took everything, and vanished before the fire even started." Emily's chest tightened, her breath catching. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Gone. Ethan and Ava were gone. The downfall begins. Emily could barely recall the drive to her parents' house in Crestview Hills. Her hands shook on the steering wheel, her pulse racing as she pulled into the driveway of the stately colonial mansion she'd once called home. She pressed the doorbell, her heart pounding. After a moment, her mother, Margaret Harper, opened the door, her piercing eyes narrowing at the sight of Emily standing there, disheveled in yesterday's clothes, looking utterly broken. "Emily," Margaret's voice was sharp and curt, "why are you here?" Emily swallowed hard, her throat tight. "Mom, please," her voice broke. "I've lost it all." Margaret didn't flinch. She tilted her head slightly, as if evaluating a bad investment. "And who's to blame for that?" Emily's eyes widened, stunned. "Mom. You've disgraced our family," Margaret went on, her tone frigid. "Not one, but 2 affairs with doctors. Do you have any idea how humiliating this has been for us?" Emily's stomach plummeted. They knew, her mother, her father, the entire family was aware of her betrayals. She shook her head frantically. I didn't mean for this to happen. I messed up, but..." "You destroyed your marriage, Emily," Margaret cut in harshly. "And now your home is gone. Honestly, I don't see why that's our burden to bear." Emily's mouth fell open, but before she could respond, Margaret slammed the door in her face. Emily stood there, rooted to the spot, the truth sinking in like a blade. Her own parents had abandoned her. She had nowhere left to turn. Maplewood, a last resort. Emily drove for hours, aimless, before ending up at the doorstep of the one person she'd sworn she'd never beg for help, her sister, Chloe. Chloe Harper had always been the family's outcast, the defiant younger sibling living on the edge of town, indifferent to prestige or appearances. Emily had looked down on her for years. Now, she was pleading for a place to crash. When Chloe opened the door, she took one look at Emily and smirked. "Well, look at this," she said, leaning against the doorframe with a drawl, the mighty Emily Harper, finally scraping the bottom of the barrel. Emily swallowed her pride, her jaw tight. "I need somewhere to stay." Chloe's smirk grew wider. "And why should I help you out?" Emily gritted her teeth. "Because we're sisters." Chloe paused, eyeing her for a moment, then gave a slow nod and stepped aside. "All right. But don't expect me to roll out the red carpet." Emily didn't care. She was in survival mode now, clinging to any lifeline she could find. A frantic effort, over the next few days, Emily scrambled to regain some control. She tried accessing the bank accounts, but Ethan had already emptied them. She reached out to her hospital contacts, but no one returned her calls. In a last-ditch act of desperation, she marched into the Oakwood Heights police station, demanding to file a report for child abduction. "My husband stole my daughter," she snapped at the officer behind the desk. "He's kidnapped her." The officer, a stocky man with weary eyes, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "Yeah, we're aware." Emily froze. What? He sighed, pulling out a file. He opened it, revealing a detailed report on Ethan. Emily's stomach twisted. Here's the thing, Mrs. Harper, the officer said, Ethan's no ordinary guy. He's a decorated war hero, respected around here. This town's got his back. Emily's mouth went dry, her voice barely a whisper. I don't get it. You've got no case, the officer said flatly. Your husband didn't abduct your daughter. She went with him willingly. Emily's pulse hammered in her ears. That's not true. Ava belongs with me. The officer shot her a look. From where I'm standing, he said, you're a woman who betrayed her husband, got exposed, and now you're trying to use your kid to get even. Emily's breath hitched, her world spinning. No, this wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to be the wronged one, the victor. The officer stood, snapping the file shut with a heavy thud. We're done here. Emily tried to protest, but he was already walking away. She'd lost everything, her money, her home, her reputation, and, worst of all, her family. For the first time ever, Emily Harper was utterly, completely alone, with no way to claw her way back. Emily sat in Chloe's cramped, messy living room, her nails digging into the frayed armrest of the old couch. The place reeked of stale incense and overbrewed coffee, the constant drone of Chloe's ancient ceiling fan amplifying the oppressive silence. For the past week, she'd been fighting to piece her life back together, to seize back some control, but every door she knocked on, every call she made, every frantic attempt to reclaim her old life had ended in failure. She was no longer Emily Harper, the esteemed doctor's wife. She was Emily Harper, the woman who'd reaped what she sowed. But she wasn't ready to give up. If the legal system couldn't get Ava back, she needed something to use against Ethan, a trump card. To find it, she'd have to dig deeper. Chloe sauntered in, dropping a steaming mug of coffee on the table. So, what's the next brilliant move, mastermind? She asked, sprawling into the recliner across from Emily. Gonna grovel to mom and dad again? Emily shot her a scowl. Not happening. Chloe snorted. Yeah, 'cause that went so well last time. Emily ignored her, sipping the coffee. It was bitter, but at least it was warm. I need to learn more about Ethan, she mumbled, almost to herself. Chloe raised an eyebrow. You were married to the guy for over 10 years, and now you're curious about him. Emily's jaw tightened. I need to figure out where he stashed Ava. The only way to do that is to know where he'd run when he's cornered. Chloe studied her for a beat, then sighed. You really never knew him, did you? Emily frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Chloe stretched, letting out a yawn. You married him, Em, but you never gave a damn about his past, right? Ever ask about his roots, his life before you came along? Emily scoffed. He was a carpenter, Chloe. Chloe let out a sharp, mocking laugh. A carpenter? God, Em, you're so clueless it hurts. Emily bristled. What are you getting at? Chloe reached over to a cluttered bookshelf, grabbed a dusty old military memoir, and tossed it into Emily's lap. Emily blinked, glancing at the title, Heroes of Courage, Tales of War and Valor. The cover showed a group of soldiers in fatigues, standing shoulder to shoulder in a barren desert. Her breath caught when she spotted a familiar face in the front row, Ethan. His gaze was piercing, his stance rigid, exuding a quiet strength, nothing like the reserved, unassuming man she'd married. This man looked like he'd faced hell and walked out stronger. Emily's hands shook as she flipped through the pages. Then she found it, a full chapter dedicated to Ethan Sullivan. As she read, the color drained from her face. The Ethan she never knew. Ethan wasn't just a humble carpenter. He was a celebrated war hero. The book chronicled his service in the 82nd Airborne Division, his deployments in the Middle East, and a mission that nearly claimed his life, a daring rescue gone sideways. Ethan and his unit were tasked with saving civilians trapped in enemy crossfire. The operation was deemed impossible, but Ethan went in regardless. The book detailed how, under relentless gunfire, he carried a wounded soldier 3 miles to safety on his back, how he held his ground to cover his team's retreat, refusing to leave until everyone was out, how he took 2 bullets but still managed to crawl out of the chaos. Emily's fingers trembled as she ran them over the printed text. She'd shared a home with this man for years, how had she missed this? She'd brushed off his history, pegging him as just a guy with rough hands and a reserved demeanor. But Ethan Sullivan was far from ordinary. He was a fighter, a survivor, and, most chillingly, a man who held grudges against those who crossed him. Emily swallowed hard, her throat tight. No wonder the cops had turned her away. No wonder Oakwood Heights rallied behind him. Ethan wasn't just some scorned ex, he was a man of honor, discipline, and the admiration of an entire community. And he'd weaponized it all against her. His tribal roots. Emily snapped the book shut, her thoughts spinning wildly. If Ethan was as calculated and skilled as the memoir painted him, he wouldn't just bolt without a strategy. He'd be somewhere he knew well, a place where he could fade into the background, vanish entirely. She needed more details. Chloe, still eyeing her with a faint smirk, lounged back in her chair. If you're trying to track him down, check out Cedar Ridge. Emily's brow creased. Cedar Ridge? What's that? Chloe's grin widened. Wow, you really tuned out during your marriage, didn't you? Emily's patience frayed. Just spit it out, Chloe. Chloe rolled her eyes with a dramatic sigh. It's his tribe, his people. He grew up there before he left, you know, before he married you and became just a carpenter. Emily's mouth went dry, the realization hitting like a punch. His tribe. Ethan had a sanctuary, a place she'd never bothered to learn about. Chloe watched her face and let out a mocking chuckle. What, you thought he was just some random guy with a toolbox? Emily didn't respond because, well, she had. She'd never once asked about his heritage, his family, or where he came from. To her, Ethan was just her husband, the guy who crafted furniture and stayed in the shadows while she soaked up the spotlight. She hadn't cared. Now, that oversight was costing her everything. Reality hits hard. Emily shot to her feet, her mind racing. I've got to find him. Chloe raised an eyebrow, skeptical. And what's your big plan when you do? Say sorry. Beg for Ava back. Emily's fists clenched, her nails biting into her palms. She's my daughter. Chloe shook her head slowly. You're not getting it, are you? Emily's nails dug deeper. Getting what? Chloe leaned in, her gaze piercing. You were never the one in charge in your marriage, she said bluntly. You just thought you were. Emily's jaw tightened, but no words came. For the first time in her life, she saw Chloe was right. Ethan had never been the weak one. He'd just let her believe he was. And now he was gone, with Ava, leaving Emily stranded in the wreckage of her own making. Driving into Cedar Ridge Reservation, the first thing that struck me was how little had changed. The same dusty, winding road stretched ahead, flanked by towering pines swaying in the breeze. Weathered wooden homes dotted the valley, their roofs darkened by time. It had been 15 years since I'd last set foot here, 15 years since I turned my back on my people, convinced I could forge a new path free from the weight of tradition and duty. But life has a funny way of dragging you back to your origins when you're least prepared, and here I was, right back at the start. Ava sat in the passenger seat, her eyes darting between me and the unfamiliar landscape. She hadn't peppered me with questions during the drive, but I could tell her mind was buzzing. I'd never mentioned this place, not to her, not to Emily, not to a soul. As we rolled down the main road, I caught sight of familiar faces, older men lingering outside the general store, their eyes wary, women strolling along the roadside, their stares sharpening as they recognized me. Word would spread fast, Ethan Sullivan's back. And I knew not everyone would be thrilled about it. The arrival, I pulled up to the council house, a sturdy log building where the tribal elders held their gatherings. This wasn't a casual visit. If Ava and I were to stay, we needed their blessing, which meant confronting the people I'd walked away from. I killed the engine, my hands gripping the steering wheel. Ava shifted beside me. "You good, Dad?" I let out a slow breath, managing a nod. "Yeah, I'm fine." She studied me for a second, then unbuckled her seatbelt. "All right, let's do this." Man, this kid had more guts than I did. The council meeting. Inside, the council house was dimly lit, the heavy scent of burning sage filling the air. 5 elders sat in a half-circle around a glowing fire pit, their faces etched with years of wisdom. Elder Bright Star, at the center, fixed his intense gaze on me the moment I stepped in. A long silence hung, then he spoke. "Ethan Sullivan." I swallowed. "Elder Bright Star." His eyes shifted to Ava. "And this child?" I rested a hand on her shoulder. "My daughter, Ava." The elder gave a slow nod. "It's been many years since you left this place." "I know," I said softly. "But I'm here to find a home for her." Murmurs stirred among the elders. I'd anticipated this. I wasn't just a prodigal son, I was a man who'd abandoned his people and now dared to ask for sanctuary. That's not an easy thing to overlook. Elder Bright Star leaned forward. "You were once part of us, Ethan. But you chose to leave, to forsake the ways of our ancestors. Now you return, seeking shelter." I held his gaze. "I'm not asking for a free pass." The elders exchanged looks. Then Bright Star's expression softened, just a fraction. "You may stay," he said finally, "but there are terms." I nodded. "Tell me what they are." "The terms, the girl," Bright Star said, glancing at Ava. "She carries a gift." I tensed. "What do you mean?" He pointed at her. "Her spirit is powerful. She is destined to walk the path of the healers." I glanced down at Ava, her face unreadable. "She will train under me," Bright Star went on. "She'll learn the ancient ways, how to hear the spirit's whispers." I hesitated. Ava had never spoken of spiritual insights or visions, but had I ever really paid attention? Had I ever seen her for who she was? Ava didn't waver. She gave a simple nod. "I'm in," she said. Bright Star's lips curved into a faint smile, as if he'd known she'd agree. Then his gaze returned to me, his voice growing weighty. "As for you, Ethan, you must earn your place." My jaw tightened. "How?" Bright Star exhaled. "Our people need a health clinic, a place for care without the burden of city travel. You were a builder once. If you want to stay, construct it." I took a deep breath. Build a clinic, a challenge, a chance to make amends. I met his eyes and nodded. "Consider it done." After the meeting, as we stepped outside, Ava turned to me. "You holding up okay?" I exhaled, the tension easing. "Yeah, it's just a lot to process." She smirked. "What, the part where I'm supposedly a spirit healer?" I let out a chuckle. "Yeah, that too." Her face grew earnest. "I want to do it, Dad." I studied her closely. "You sure about this?" She nodded firmly. "If it means we can stay, absolutely. Plus, I've always had this feeling, like I can sense trouble coming before it hits. Maybe this is why." I didn't question it. Maybe Cedar Ridge was exactly where we belonged. I slung an arm around her shoulder, pulling her close. "All right," I said. "We're staying." For the first time in ages, I felt like I'd found home. The first morning at Cedar Ridge Reservation felt different. The air was fresh, untainted by city smog or noise. The scent of pine mingled with the faint smoke of morning fires. Birds chirped in the treetops, and in the distance, a steady drumbeat pulsed through the valley. For the first time in years, I woke up with a sense of calm. But calm wasn't enough, I had a debt to settle. I laced up my boots and stepped out of the small cabin. Ava had already headed off to train with Elder Bright Star, her mind open to the ancient teachings. I was proud of her, she'd embraced this place in a way I never did as a kid. Maybe that was the difference. I'd spent my youth fleeing my heritage, while Ava was planting herself firmly in it. I envied her strength, but I couldn't dwell on it. I had a clinic to build. Creating from scratch. The plot they assigned me sat on the reservation's far edge, a sprawling field choked with weeds and dotted with weathered stones. In my head, I could already see the structure taking shape, the foundation, the walls, the mission behind it. This wouldn't just be a clinic, it would be a testament, proof I wasn't here to duck my past. I was here to right my wrongs. I didn't expect company for the job, though. On the second morning, when I showed up with my tools, a group of men was already there waiting. Some were young, eyes full of curiosity, others were older, their faces carved with time and experience. One stepped forward, a face I knew, Jacob Black Wolf. I tensed. He'd been my best friend growing up, before I turned my back on this place, before I left behind the people who'd shaped me. He sized me up for a long moment before speaking. "You walked away from us, Ethan." I held his gaze, unflinching. "I know." He nodded, arms folded. "So why'd you come back?" I let out a breath, my hand tightening around the hammer. "To repair what I broke." A heavy silence hung between us. Then, slowly, Jacob gave a nod. "All right. We'll pitch in." Just like that, the tribe took me back, not with grand speeches or absolution, but with deeds. They grabbed hammers, hoisted beams, and worked alongside me, not out of obligation, but because they chose to. That meant more than any words could. The ambush, not everyone was ready to let bygones be bygones. One evening, I was working late, long after the others had gone home. The sun had sunk below the trees, casting deep shadows over the clinic's half-finished frame. Then I heard it, footsteps. I turned, but too late. Something solid slammed into my ribs, knocking me into a beam. Pain erupted in my side, sharp and merciless. Before I could recover, another blow caught me across the face. I hit the dirt, blood pooling in my mouth. Through the blur, I made out two figures looming over me. I recognized them, bitter men, still nursing grudges from years ago, men who hadn't forgotten my betrayal. "You think you can just waltz back here?" one of them snarled. I didn't respond. Another kick landed, this time in my ribs. I clenched my teeth, enduring it, not out of weakness, but because I knew I'd earned it. Eventually, they left me there, battered and bleeding, their point made. Not everyone wanted me back. Emily's desperation, while I fought to carve out my place, Emily was on a mission to track me down. Posters of Ava and me started popping up in nearby towns, missing father and daughter. She was hunting us, casting a wide net, driven by desperation. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't expect her to actually find us. It was a Sunday evening when she showed up. Ava and I were outside our cabin, sharing a meal by the fire, when headlights pierced the darkness. A car rolled up, and before I saw her, I knew, Emily. She stepped out, her once pristine appearance now worn thin, dark circles under her eyes, clothes rumpled, her usual poise drowned in layers of desperation. Ava tensed beside me. Emily's eyes found her daughter first, softening. "Ava." Ava didn't budge. Emily turned to me next. "Ethan." I stood, positioning myself between them. "How'd you track us down?" Emily swallowed, her throat tight. "I never stopped searching." Her voice cracked. "Ethan, please. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you, but I need to see my daughter." Ava spoke before I could. "You didn't care about me before," she said, her tone cutting. Why the sudden interest? Emily flinched. Because I messed up. Ava's gaze was unrelenting. Are you still with Nathan? Emily looked away. That was answer enough. Ava scoffed, crossing her arms. You're only here because you've got nothing left, right? Emily's silence spoke volumes. But then she did what she always did, played the victim card. She turned to me, her face raw. Ethan, please. I can't do this on my own. I cut her off, my voice ice cold. You don't need me. You need control, and you've lost it. Emily's expression twisted with frustration. Ethan, You can stay, I said. Live nearby, work at the clinic once it's finished. Her eyes flickered with hope. But that's where it ends, I added. You'll never hold sway over us again. The hope crumbled. She realized then, she hadn't won, and she never would. Emily didn't leave. I'd given her an out, a chance to let the past burn and accept that she'd lost us for good. But Emily Harper wasn't the type to admit defeat. She stayed in Cedar Ridge, not in my home or my life, but close enough to be a constant reminder. She rented a small place on the reservation's outskirts, working at the temporary clinic while I pushed forward with the permanent one. She didn't make demands or try to scheme. For once, Emily played the part of a humbled woman. But I wasn't fooled, I knew it was a facade. Still, I let her stay, not because I'd forgiven her, but because Ava deserved to decide for herself if she wanted her mother in her life. A fragile truce, weeks passed. Emily was cautious, deliberate. She didn't press for time with Ava or try to worm her way back into our lives. She was biding her time, for what, I couldn't pinpoint. Ava, though, kept her guard up. She tolerated Emily, exchanging brief, curt words, but never let her in. One night at dinner, she finally said what was on her mind. She's faking it, Ava muttered, poking at her food. I leaned back, studying her. What makes you think that? Ava shrugged. I know her, Dad. She's not sorry for what she did. She's just pissed it backfired. I nodded slowly. So what's your next move? She sighed, thoughtful. I don't know. Maybe I just want to see how long she can keep up the act before she cracks. A test. Emily had taught our daughter to spot manipulation, and now Ava was flipping the script. I should have put a stop to it, told her that even quiet revenge wasn't the way. But deep down, I was curious to see how it'd play out. The facade cracks, Emily tried to play the saint. She showed up at tribal meetings, mingled at community events, acting like a woman seeking atonement. But the mask started to slip. The first sign was subtle, frustration flaring when Ava refused to sit with her at a gathering. Emily's grip on her napkin tightened, her jaw clenching just enough to betray her annoyance. She couldn't stand being dismissed. The second time was more obvious. Ava turned down an offer to grab lunch alone. Emily pleaded, but Ava walked away without a word. Then, one night, I caught Emily lingering outside my cabin. She wasn't there for Ava, she was there for me. The last plea, I stepped onto the porch, arms crossed. What do you want, Emily? Her eyes held something unsettling. Ethan, she whispered, we could make this right. I let out a bitter chuckle. Make what right? She edged closer. You and me. My stomach churned. Emily. I messed up, she said, her voice shaky. But you still love me. I know it. I exhaled, holding her gaze. You don't want me, Emily. You want control. She recoiled. That's not true. I shook my head. It is. You're here because you've got nothing else left. Her breath caught, and for a fleeting moment, something real, desperation, fear, flashed across her face. She wasn't here out of regret for her betrayal. She was here because she was alone. But that wasn't my burden anymore. I stepped back. Go home, Emily. Her lips parted. Ethan, please. Go home, I said again, firm. She stared, searching for a crack in my resolve. She found none. Slowly, she retreated, her hands trembling. As she reached the tree-lined shadows, she muttered, "You'll regret this." I didn't respond. Her regret was her own, and that's what terrified her most. The night was still, too still. I'd grown used to Cedar Ridge's quiet, but tonight felt off, heavy, like the air was holding its breath. Ava sat on the couch, flipping through a book, but her mind was elsewhere. I could tell by the restless tap of her fingers, the way her eyes darted to the door every few minutes. She sensed it too. Trouble was brewing. Then my phone vibrated. I grabbed it, already knowing who it'd be. Jake. I answered, voice low. What's up? Jake sighed on the other end. She's making her play. No need to ask who. Emily. She'd played the long con, acting patient, repentant, convincing the folks at Cedar Ridge she'd turned over a new leaf. But when she realized she'd never get what she wanted, the act fell apart. She'd gone to the courts, filed an emergency custody claim, claiming I was keeping Ava from her. My jaw tightened. How bad? Jake paused. Bad enough. The papers went through. If you're still there when they show up, they'll take her. Ava stiffened. She couldn't hear Jake, but she knew. I looked at my daughter, my whole world, and a cold certainty settled in my chest. Emily thought she'd cornered me. She thought she'd won. She was dead wrong. I ended the call. Ava. She was already on her feet. We've gotta go, don't we? I nodded. She didn't shed a tear, didn't waver. Okay, she said, steady. She knew we'd been ready for this from the start. The final exit, I didn't pack much, just a bag with the essentials, my wallet, and the cash I'd stashed away. Ava slung her backpack over her shoulder. We had one shot. Emily expected me to fight this in court, to stay and argue. She didn't know I'd already planned our getaway. We slipped out the back door, melting into the night. As we crossed the reservation's edge, I glanced back one last time. Cedar Ridge had given me a second chance, a home, and now I was leaving it behind because nowhere was safe when Emily Harper was hell-bent on destroying me. We reached the car, and I started the engine, hands firm on the wheel. Ava let out a breath. Where to now? I cracked a smile. Hawaii. Emily's ultimate defeat. At sunrise, Emily stormed into my cabin, police at her side, her posture radiating triumph, arms crossed, head held high. She was ready to reclaim Ava, picturing the moment, my face when they served the papers, Ava's tears as she was torn from me. But when she stepped inside, she found emptiness. The cabin was barren. The officers exchanged looks. Emily's stomach sank. She spun around. Where is he? Jacob Black Wolf, standing nearby, gave a casual shrug. Gone. Emily's face contorted with rage. No, that's impossible. He wouldn't just leave. But I had. Because I'd always known she'd pull this. Because I'd beaten her before she even knew the game was on. Emily stumbled back, her world collapsing. She'd spent months clawing for control, and now she had nothing. An officer cleared his throat. Ma'am, without his whereabouts, our hands are tied. Emily snapped, eyes blazing. Find him. Check every airport, every road. He stole my daughter. Jacob scoffed. She was never yours to lose. Emily's breathing grew ragged. No, this isn't how it ends. But it was. By the time she grasped her defeat, Ava and I were long gone. A fresh start. The flight to Maui was long, but we didn't mind. Ava slept, her head resting on my shoulder, her breaths even, her face calm. As the plane touched down, I let out a deep breath. The past was behind us. Emily Harper would never reach us again. We were free. And for the first time, I didn't just feel like I'd slipped away. I felt like I'd won. That's all for today's tale on Top Stories Hub. Hit subscribe, leave a comment, and tell me what you'd like to see next.